Hello, 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 hello. Let's just let everybody get in here from Instagram to YouTube, and then we're gonna get started. Believe me, I appreciate you for spending time with me. If this is the first time you've been in one of my live streams, my name is Brill, and what I do is I create pedestal wives. We're women who live the desires of our hearts. So we're going to talk about how do you stimulate the bond before his body. So let's just let some other people get into the room before we even get started. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, Pedestal Wives, for support. Thank you for hitting that button. Thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate it so much. All right, so I'm letting people get in the room, but we're gonna get ready to get started. All right, we're going to talk about stimulating the bond before his body. Bond trumps everything. And before I get into the nitty gritty of the details, let's talk about connections because people get it confused. Even Google has this wrong. Google talks about if you were to go and Google emotional bonds, they will actually come up with information for emotional connections. See, emotional connections and emotional bonds are two different things, and they lead to different results. So let's talk about the connection. Think about the connection. When you meet someone and y'all are just vibing, you're having a great conversation, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I'm enjoying speaking to this person. We're having so much fun. That is a connection. A lot of people are very confused when they have that sort of spark with a person, that sort of vibing with a person, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere because what you're needing in order to have a healthy, happy relationship, you absolutely need a bond. And then after you get the bond, you need the us versus them, which is us versus the world. And in order to get that, it's the entire process that's being left out. Even if you Google this information, you won't get it because they don't even understand it. So when we're talking about emotional connection, that could be just vibing with someone, having a good time, laughing, joking. Your bonds take time. Bonds take time to cement. And especially when you're talking about a female and a male relationship. Let's start there. If you're trying to create a bond with a man, it takes time for one. So do not, I really don't play into when I hear women and thinking that they have that type of bond that's going to last a lifetime. You have a connection and it can go further because the emotional connection is the foundation of a bond. But in order for you to get to that level, it does take time. So let's talk about how to create that bond with the man. And I've done this type of work before. If I'm going to give you 3 ways, but of course, there's more information. I have tons of content on my YouTube page where I talk about how to create bonds. I also go into depth into my Make Him Earn You course. So, in order to create a bond, one of the first things you want to make sure you're doing, you're setting the mood, being playful, setting the mood, making sure that you create an environment where he feels like he can be himself. He feels like he can talk about anything with you. You all joke. You all have inside jokes. You say things aren't necessarily PC, but he's going to be able to carry that secret and you're going to be able to carry his secrets. That's super important when you're creating a bond. Number 2, be open enough. Be open enough. What I mean by that, if you tell him something and you are upset when you're telling him this. Let's say you tell him something about the last guy that you dated and he was horrible, and you give him that information. You have to be careful with that type of information. And let me explain myself. When I say be open enough, I say be open enough to where if you can give him some information about yourself, make sure you've healed from before you give it. If you're giving him that information, you're relaying it to him and it's upsetting you, you're crying, or you feel like you can go stomp that man down or whatever. Those emotions come up when you're telling that man this information, then don't give him. Don't give that information to him. It's not time. And that's because this is in the beginning. We're trying to create a long lasting bond. You do not go and try to create a bond by putting everything on the table. When you put everything on the table, you scare people away. When you tell all of your ills and everything that happened to you in the beginning, you scare people away. They're like, oh, that person got too much baggage. Oh, that person may not be able to connect with me like I want, like I desire. Like, even though people are seeing it. Men don't have a desire to connect. That is not true. That is the biggest lie the devil ever told. Men do have a desire to connect. They just desire to connect with a worthy woman. And when you are having these feelings and you're connecting with him, make sure you're connecting with him and giving him something that you're no longer mad at. Do not give him your blueprint, because this does play into it, especially in the beginning. Remember, we're trying to build a long-lasting bond, not something that's going to crumble at the slightest pressure. We want something that's going to stand the test of time, and that's a bond. Bond trumps everything. If you want something, with a man, you want a bond. You actually want that bond before you want what's below. Okay, that's what's going to test. That's what's going to be with you and him throughout test of time. People who have a bond last longer than people who are just around here smacking those cheeks. If that's the only thing y'all are doing, get that thought process out your head. Because when I go on Facebook, like I said, Facebook is the dumpster fire of social media. I see a plethora of beautiful women, all of them talking about, oh, I put it on him. When I put it on him, he's going to put a ring on it. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say he will not. But we're going to go back to the stats, right? Let's go ahead and refer back to the stats. If I go back to the stats tell me you're not telling the truth. Because if you go to the stats, relationships end due to financial. And if you go from a lower middle class and below, they tend to have a high rate of divorce. If you go to upper middle class and beyond, their divorce rate is 26% or 27%. Don't quote me, but I know it's around that range. So the stats tell me that even if you're jumping on it, bouncing on it, doing the most, you still are not creating a bond. So bonds matter. Bond trump everything, regardless of what you can do in the bedroom. So let's go ahead and make sure if you have that thought process, please change it. It's not helping you in the long run. The stats don't bear it truthful. All right. The next thing is make sure that if you're trying to create a bond, you want to make sure you're flirty, you're touching, you're laughing. Those moments are going to be your milestones. These are going to be the moments you're going to be able to talk about and laugh about when you have children, when you settle down, or if you're around your friends or family. Now, let's talk about stimulating a bond. And hold up, before I got ahead of myself, remember this, all bonds need to be tested. Anything that's done well has to be tested. When you go and purchase your car, do you realize your car actually went through a lot of tests before it was actually given to the consumer? Nothing is put on the market without it being tested. And you need to realize that even your relationship, before you jump in head first, before you open your heart to this man, make sure there's a test in place. I am so big on testing. And if you don't believe me, go to my YouTube channel. I talk about testing men. I talk about how you should do that and, doing it organically. This means we don't create situations to test, but we do test, because everything in the world has to be tested in some form or fashion before it's even released to the market. Before you open your heart to anyone, you need to make sure you test that bond. Make sure you test that relationship. Make sure you test the bonds and restraints of that relationship so you know what you're getting into. Because I truly do believe emotionally unavailable people get a bad rap, because you absolutely should be emotionally unavailable until you find a man that's going to give you what you want and need. So, and that's a whole another topic, but that's what I believe in. I believe it's a choice to fall in love. It's a choice to get in a relationship, and that power, the ball is in your court, and you can make those choices. But let's go to stimulating the bond. So when you're stimulating your bond, which is no more than building emotional intimacy, that's all it is. It helps the relationship to grow and deepen. One of the things you want to make sure you're doing, you want to make sure you don't mind giving a compliment. Don't mind giving a compliment. The compliment can be basic, y'all. It doesn't have to be over the top. It needs to be realistic and something that he can say, okay, she's not just blowing smoke up my bum, pretty much. You can say, you look very handsome. That's a compliment, right? You can also affirm him. You can be like, I really appreciate you. I want you to know this. I want you to know that I appreciate you doing whatever. I want you to know that I like the fact you did this for me. You can affirm him. So compliment him, affirming him, that is going to stimulate the bond. Then your final, I feel like the biggest asset that you have in your bag is stroking his ego. If you trying to deepen this bond, Make sure you stroke the ego, but make sure you know the difference between a stroking the ego and complimenting a man, because there are two different things. When you compliment a man, it's just basic. Just like I gave you, you look very handsome. When you're stroking the ego, it's very specific to him, and you're trying to make him feel like a hero. Remember, when you're going for stroking the ego, you're actually looking for him to preen and walk a little taller. And remember, we test everything over here. You can't know if you're doing anything right unless you test it. Unless you test the bonds, test the restraints, you don't know if it's correct. You don't know if it's working like it's supposed to work. So let's get to my pretty much my final piece of this is what do you the final piece of creating a bond that leads to just to commitment. When you're building a mentality between you and him, it is us versus the world. There's certain things you need to do. First of all, it takes time. You do not get there overnight. It takes time to build a mentality with your man. It is us versus the world. It takes time, especially, and also you do have to be in, he has to be providing certain things, because I do not believe that love comes willy-nilly. I do believe it's a choice to fall in love. I absolutely do believe that in order to deepen that bond between you and him, he has to be providing the basic needs. He has to be providing for basic needs and being in his role for him to be able for you all to have experience true love. I do believe he has to be providing you housing, food, and security and clothing. He has to be providing those things before you can actually have experience true love between you two and having mentality of us versus the world. Now, like I said, this takes time. And as he's providing these things, and there's no way I can give you a number on that time. You'll know, because you'll know he has this us versus the world mentality when you start to hear things like we. You start hearing we a lot. You start hearing we have done this and you haven't even contributed anything. You haven't even lifted a finger. When you start telling people we have a successful business and you're like, I didn't do anything but support. But you smile and you're like, yes, we. That's how you know that it's everything is working properly, because like we said, we're testing over here. The first thing you need to do is make sure that you spend quality time. Quality time is absolutely important when you're building a we versus the world mentality. Make sure that you try to cut off the electronics, disconnect from the internet. I know it's super hard, you all. I know it's super hard to do because everybody's super connected, but you want to connect with him and not others. So this your quality time. This is the time that you have with him for y'all to have long and deep discussions. Remember, if one of my policies is if your man isn't talking to you, it's because he doesn't want to talk to you, or because he doesn't trust you. It could be either of those two things. Because men talk just like women talk. Men gossip just like women gossip. If your man isn't talking to you, it may be you. But in order to build the us versus them, us versus the world, you're going to spend quality time together. That could be couple states, that could be couple trips, that could be staycations. I am the queen of staycations. I know how to put a good staycation together where we can, bond and have quality time. Another thing is we are one. You're going to operate already in that oneness, which means in public, you're one. If there is a dispute between each other, you handle that behind closed doors. You don't ever sit here and try to make your partner feel bad in front of a public. In public, y'all one always. You're moving as one, you're talking as one. He got my back, I got his back, that type of thing. Y'all are moving as one in public. Be one in public and be one in family settings also. That means it doesn't matter if it's his family or your family. Y'all still moving as one. It doesn't matter if it's your mama and she talking something about your husband. That's where you put that's the brakes. That's where you put that brake on. And when he should be give you that same energy. That's how you know he's moving towards it's us versus the world. It's no longer him and his family, no longer him and his mother, no longer him and his boys. It's us versus the world. And you'll get that energy when even his family approach you. He'll step in and he'll be like, hey, hold up. You don't talk to her like that. You don't speak to her like that. That is my wife. I'll talk to her if there's an issue. You don't do that. Thank you. And it's just that simple, you all. It doesn't have to become aggressive. It doesn't have to become violent. I've had my husband have to do that before because I didn't have the best relationship with my in-laws in the beginning. But that is how it's supposed to be handled in the first place when a man is having the we versus the world mentality versus he is still a part of his family and he's not seeing you as his family. It does become to a point where you are his family. You're supposed to be his family. It doesn't matter. Guess what? It doesn't matter if you don't want kids. It doesn't matter if y'all don't have kids. If you're married to him, you are his family first, and they are second. They no longer become before you anymore. And this is the reason I tell you, keep an attitude of no woman becomes before me, especially as a wife. But we are one, we move as one. That is how we're going to build this us versus the world. Another thing is don't sabotage your man. If you're building a we versus the world, you shouldn't have it as me versus him. You're trying to build that mentality. You want him to see you as one. You want him to move as one, even when y'all are not together. And the way to do that is you don't sabotage him. When this man is opening up to you, he has a bond with you. He's telling you all his secrets. He's telling all the juicy juice. He's telling you all his insecurities. And in an argument, you throw it back at him. In an argument, you say, well, that's why you're a mama's boy. That's why you need da. That's not building the mentality of it is us versus the world. You do not throw back his insecurities. Now, if you've been watching me for a long time, you know that there's a ways to use insecurities, but it's not in that manner. That is destructive. That is negative. That is not going to build a relationship or bond the relationship. So don't do it. Don't hit below the belt. This also means, guess what? It also means that y'all are one in front of your children. Your kids are not allowed to conquer you. If you are building a us versus the world, this means y'all are moving as one, even in front of your children. This means your kids are not allowed to conquer you separately. This means you're not allowed to say yes and override daddy. Okay? If daddy said no, then it's no. Even if you don't agree, you say, well, your daddy done said no. It is what it is. This is the us versus the world mentality. Because when it comes down to it, your children will become grown. They're going to go on and live their lives, happy, healthy lives. And you're going to be there with your husband. What do you want? Do you want a us versus the world? Or do you want a me versus you? It's just that simple of building that type of relationship. So when your kids come, even if you don't agree with him saying no, you go tell her, affirm it to the child, and then you go to him and be like, hey, I don't like this. I really don't like this. I think you should give it another look. This is what I think about it. And then let him go and change if the yes to a no or the no to a yes to whatever to that child. So they'll see you two as a firm, they see you as one. They don't see they can conquer each and every one of you, separately, because it's not supposed to be that way. It is supposed to be us versus the world. And as you're building that us versus the world, you build commitment, you build togetherness, it's the best feeling in the world to have somebody on your side, no matter what you do. Even though they might correct you in private, they definitely won't correct you in public. So if I'm in public, I'm all wrong, is get out. Guess who's not going to correct me? He ain't. Because it's us versus the world. It's us versus everybody else. It's us versus the public. So that is what I have for bonds. And if you're looking for more, I have more. Y'all, I have been really going on and on about bonds since I started my page. So I have plenty of information about bonds on my YouTube page. And I also have plenty of posts on my Instagram page about bonds, because bonds trump everything. You want to create a bond. You don't want to, of course, you want to get to the point where you're enticing and stimulate his loins all you can and get out, right? But you don't need to do that before you create that bond. If you do it out of sync, you're not creating a long-lasting relationship. And this is the reason why women are behind the ball when it comes to these relationships, because men even understand they're not going to just marry a woman because she stimulates his loins. They understand that concept. Then they're not out there talking about, wow, put it down on them and she gonna want to marry me. I done did it and she gonna want to put a ring on it. They're not online saying these things. It's only women saying these most ridiculous things, not recognizing that a bond trumps everything. Now, of course, when you're married, that is how you continue to water the bond, right? You continue to water the bond because the bond is like a flower. If you do not water the bond and spend quality time, the relationship will die. But bye, babe. So if you want to have a long lasting relationship, a long lasting, not just, a long lasting, juicy, healthy relationship that is full of love and, sex appeal, it's full of all of those things, you're going to have to create that bond first. And why are you creating a bond? Let me tell you why the bond is so important. Let me explain why it's so important. The bond is super important because it gives him time to get to know you. That is one of the aspects of the bond. It gives him time to get to know you on a deeper level because men absolutely have the ability to disconnect from sex. They have the ability to disconnect with the woman after they don't have sex with a woman. They don't have a bond. They can get up and go. Women are not like that. We were never created to be that type of person anyway. Now, yes, there is some women. Let's not get it twisted. There are some women that can operate like men because they're totally in their masculine energy. But feminine women cannot operate like this. They have to have a bond first in order to make sure the sex is meaningful. And when you're, making sure the bond is deeper, of course, you want to have plenty of sex. Sex has its place. Sex has its meaning, but it's not before you stimulate that bond. So always bond before his body, bond before sex. And that is going to help you create a bond that's long lasting. So if you have any questions, you can drop them. Hello, Pedestal Wives on Instagram and YouTube. Thank you all for your support. I see you in the building. Let me go ahead and preface. I normally don't say people's names, period, on my live streams for privacy issues because I'm a very private person myself. And I respect your privacy. Just because we're online doesn't mean we should not respect another person's privacy. Okay, Pedestal Wife from YouTube. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, you all. I'm always happy for the beginning of the week because it's a new day to do new things, to do big things, to have big ideas. Just a new day. I love new weeks. Mondays are my favorite. I like your hair, looking beautiful this afternoon. Thank you. All right, but bonds take time. They absolutely take time. I'm not one of those ones that actually believe that you can get married, and yes, infatuation can turn to love, and then you create the bond. But I can tell you right now, the stats don't bear it out. The stats just don't bear it out. It's being successful. It just doesn't. And this is the reason why I tell you all to create that bond first. Create that bond first if you want long lasting. You want a long lasting relationship because most of us, let's just put it all on the table. Most feminine women, we're looking and want true love. We want the whole shebang. We're not out here saying we just want the bag. Of course, that's nice, right? That's nice. Absolutely. I have nothing against money. Money is nothing but energy and abundance. So I absolutely love and desire to have that too. But being a feminine woman, I absolutely am happy that I have the entire shebang. I am so happy that I have true love in my life and I actually have a man that's able to provide and protect and lead. And I'm satisfied for that. I'm so happy for those things. And I know other women want it too. They don't want just half of what people are saying you can have because, they say you can have it. This is the reason why it's so important that we actually stimulate his bond before we stimulate his body. His loins is not as important. Of course, it's important for attraction, for him to actually walk across the room to get to know us. But we already know, we've already seen how it's going down when people are saying, too many people think that those relationships start by having just good sex only. And I'm here to tell you that is not the way to have a long-lasting relationship, a way to create a long-lasting bond. It's going to stand the test of time. Because I don't know about you all, but I love the fact that I have, not only is he looking at me as though I love her, I want to be with her, I desire her, but he's looking at me like that is, it's us. I'm looking at, he's committed. He's wanting to do things to make sure that I'm happy. And I love that about him. And I desire that for other women too, because I know that it's done a certain way. And yes, I absolutely did follow my own process. I'm not up here on the internet talking about, oh, you should do it this way. No, I didn't do it. I did not get, I'm not, there's plenty of people who do this. Get in here and say, hey, you should do it this way. This is how you get to a great man. And then they didn't do that either themselves. They thought they had to lay it down in the bedroom in order to get this man to propose. And I'm here to tell you, I didn't have to do it that way. I actually chose my husband. I chose love. I opened myself up. And yes, I was emotionally unavailable until he gave me, and I saw in him that he was going to give me what I needed. Until he gave me what I was needed, I was not going to be emotionally available. And so people who are unemotionally unavailable and stuff, they have a bad rap. I hate the fact that people are talking about it's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. It's a good thing to have everything under wraps until you are ready, and you get a person who's like-minded in front of you who can give you what you need. Then it's okay to open things up. It is okay to open yourself up to love, and make it a choice to love a person versus falling. You have so many choices, so little time, and women, we're definitely not taking advantage of those choices. All right, so I really don't have anything else other than talking about the bond. If we don't have any other questions, I'm going to get ready to go and wrap this up. But it does require time, a bond that's effective, long lasting, to get to the point where it's us versus the world. It does take time. This relationship did not take overnight. I have been married 20 years, going on 21 in August. And the relationship to take to this juiciness, this yumminess, this electric that we have between each other, this knowing, it did not happen overnight. And this is the reason why I reject all of this wishy-washy stuff, this Disney frou-frou stuff, where it just happens overnight, where it just happens when you just meet someone and y'all eyes meet across the parking lot, and all of a sudden you're in love, and it's true love. I reject all that, because I've seen those relationships go through, not last. Pretty much, I'm just going to be honest with you. I've seen those relationships, they don't last. It only lasts when you do the work, when you actually put the work in creating a bond and stimulating a bond and getting to the point where it is us versus the world. That's when you see your relationship flourish. That's the reason you see two people, of course, we're two separate people, and we're able to get together and become one and be, great in what we're doing. But I know it took time to get here. It did not happen overnight. And I don't believe it happens overnight, period. And it's so much easier when everybody's playing their role. See, right now we see in a society where people are saying, oh, you could do this and he could do that and y'all could do it this way. But realize, in order to actually experience true love, he has to be providing at least your basic needs. If he's not providing your basic needs, it's hard to actually lean into your femininity and open your heart, and open yourself to love, to the next level, because you can feel infatuation comes very easily. That's what a lot of people are feeling. People are getting married based off infatuation, based off, I like you, you like me, I like you, you like me, and then let's get married. And not getting married based off the foundations that it should be, which is your shared values, your shared morals, your shared background. Those are things that help cement a bond. If you want to really connect with a person, have shared background, have a shared values, have shared morals. That's going to help cement the emotional bond so that it can get to that next level. Because that's what we're trying to do. I really want you to experience a bond where it's us versus the world. It doesn't matter about our children. It's not, our kids can't even come between us. They can't conquer us. They can't come between us and divide us, period. Because we are like this. We're like this. If he says no, then babies, no. I might talk to him behind closed door, but I'm never going to cross him in front of our children. That's creating a bond. Let him know I trust his word. I stand for his word. When you say yes or no, it's a yes or no. And that's how we're operating. So if I'm saying yes, he's going to stand on that yes. Even though if he might not like it, he might not pretty much like that I said yes to something, but he might talk to me behind closed door. Like, why you say yeah? You know good and well I don't like that. Then if he's talking to me, I'm like, okay, he's making good points. I might need to go back here and recorrect and backstep. I have to, take put some effort into going back here and correcting this issue. And I've had to do that in the past. Like, okay, he said no, and he's giving me some good reasons why I should be no. So let me go back here and tell her, because I got 2 girls, 2 boys. Let me go ahead and tell her it's a no. Because he said, I go back and say, hey, I thought about it, and I think this right here, it's a no. You can't do that. And that's how you stay, as a united front, instead of allowing your children to conquer you. Because when your kids become grown, They're going to go on about their lives and have a healthy and happy life. And they're not going to be in the middle of your relationship period in the first place. They're not going to be there because a lot of parents are putting their children in spaces they shouldn't be when it comes to children. And your kids shouldn't be in your marriage ever. They shouldn't be. Because if you want us versus the world, don't put your children in the middle of your marriage ever. Okay, let me get to YouTube and then I'm going to drop over to Instagram. Hi, Brill. Can you talk more about the principles of building bonds, such as acceptance, validation, listening, prioritizing that person, etc.? Okay, building a bond. I've talked about that. I did that on my YouTube, and that is a lot of information. This is more about stimulating the bond, testing the bond, and getting to the us versus world mentality. You can go back on my channel and watch that. And I've done that on my channel, and I also did it in the course. So I did the Make Him Earn You course, because that is a lot of information. We will be here for a long time, because I think those videos are like an hour long when I talked about how to create and build those bonds. That's going to be, like I said, that's still over time, regardless. Building the bond is over time. Creating it, building it, stimulating it, testing it, and then going to the next level, because there's levels to this. And I've actually explained that on another YouTube video already. If you actually go back down my channel, I've already answered that question. So true. Thank you for these gems. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. But when it comes down to having a bond is super important. That's one of the things I feel like is missing when it comes to people who are getting married. They don't have a bond. And then they forget that once you do have the bond, it doesn't matter if you have it. Bonds are just like waters. You have to continue to water it. You have to continue to make sure you put into it so it continues to grow. If you don't put anything into it, it's going to die. It doesn't matter if you have that bond, but you don't do anything. Y'all don't spend time together. You're choosing the children over him. And see, that is when a woman chooses the children over her man in that relationship. It's not saying it's going to kill the bond. It's just saying it's going to put a question mark on the bond, because he's going to wonder, have you fallen out with him? Why you're starting to disagree with him? Remember, we're seeking oneness. When you're trying to build this bond, you're seeking to be one with your man. You're seeking for y'all to move as one in decision making. And it depends on how your marriage is, because I don't tell people how to have their marriages. It depends on how you decide your decision making would be in your marriage, because I'm more traditional. That means my husband usually makes those final decisions. I can give my opinion. I can put up my, I don't agree with this, or, I don't like this. But when it comes down to it, he makes that final decision. That is our marriage. You can choose what you want to choose to do for your marriage. But if you want to create a bond that is long lasting, you're going to have to make sure that you don't allow your children to come between you, your family to come between you, your friends to come between you, and your mother. Because I notice now in this generation, there's a lot of mothers that are coming between the relationships. It could be the in-laws, mother-in-law. It could be the father-in-law. It's these in-laws are coming in between relationships where they shouldn't be in the midst of a relationship, especially if you're creating a bond. And both of you have to learn how to handle your in-laws. Or not only in-laws, you have to learn how to handle your own mother. He has to learn how to handle his own mother, and y'all have to learn how to shut them out. One of the things I learned is since I got married at 19, and since I was a 19-year-old, I was talkative. I was very super talkative. I used to talk to my family members all about what's going on now and how we had an argument. And then I learned very quickly that just because you forgave him, they don't forgive. They still hold that up, and that's like a mark against him. He's still not the same man that was introduced to the family when they really liked him and they was really feeling him. But when that argument came, you don't sit here and read your mouth to the family, he is, looked at differently. He may even be uninvited to things. They don't want him to come along because he had one argument with his wife, and that can happen. Learn to keep your family out your business. You want to create a bond that is long lasting and actually develops in. After a while, the bond does change over to us versus the world, but it also changes over to like a deep commitment. It's like a deep commitment feeling. It's like when he make a move, it's like he's not going to do something that is going to harm you, because he's like, I'm committed. He's going to continue to, even if you don't have children anymore, He's going to still want to give you the lifestyle that you become accustomed to because he's committed to you. Like I said, after a while, it changes and it grows and it deepens and it becomes commitment. And he's doing more to please you. And it's like, uh, hopefully I'm explaining it and not going around the bend. But yeah, that is what it becomes. I don't want to be just going all over the place you are. I want to kind of stay focused on the conversation. That's the reason why I'm not trying to go over and go backwards to what I've already done. Not because I don't want to answer y'all's questions, but I realized that when I do that, I make the videos unorganized. And I have to actually make sure that I'm not answering questions from way back 2 videos ago and allowing my audience to go back and look at that video. And hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be rude. It's just that I realize that when I do that, I complicate the video and we get off topic. And I want you to get the point of what I'm talking about. And, also just go back and visit the other video that I'm referring to because it will help. And it'll help the algorithm on YouTube. See, we're trying to build that community over there too. So we have a great, thriving, growing Instagram Pedals to Wife community. I definitely desire one over on YouTube. And I know that if I constantly go backwards, I'm not going to be able to get that. Also, does our femininity play a role in stimulating a bond, and how? Okay, your role, yes, I would say it does play a role because of the fact that when you're trying to create the us versus them mentality, when you're talking about femininity, you're still just going to be a woman. So you're going to play your role. Him playing his role and you playing your role is going to help stimulate that bond. It's also not just going to stimulate the bond, it's going to grow and deepen into true love. Remember, I don't believe that true love just happens overnight. I don't believe in looking across the parking lot and then you automatically fall in love. I believe that's infatuation. It might be intense. It might be just like a connection, just like I was talking about with a connection in the beginning. Remember, now you can meet someone today in the street and y'all can have a conversation. Y'all be kikiing back and forth, and you like, oh my gosh, we had such a connection, but that connection can go nowhere. You know why it doesn't go anywhere? Because you can vibe with somebody, but if you don't do the work and have the bond, it's not going to go anywhere. That's where the sauce is lost. That's where people are getting it wrong. So femininity, of course, plays in that because you're going to play your role and he's going to play his. As long as he's playing his role and you're playing yours, he's providing your basic needs. You have you're going to be able to deepen that bond, and it changes, it deepens, and it becomes true love. And what bonds and true love are the same. They're not different. Okay, even though people are talking about them like they're different aspects of each other, but they're not. Bonds, true love, same thing. All right, yeah. But you're having the bond is very important to a long-lasting marriage, commitment, a long-lasting relationship, whatever you're trying to go for. Make sure that you try to stimulate that bond before you stimulate his loins. Before you try to stimulate his nether regions, you need to make sure you stimulate the bond. And the bond is making sure that you create a foundation where you set a mood. It's about setting a mood and the energy, being playful, being fun, having a no judgment zone, having a place where you two can be each other. I can tell him anything. I'm like, hey, maybe after 12 or midnight, I change it to a monster. I don't know. But whatever I'm feeling, he keeps it. He keeps my secrets. I keep his secrets. That's building your bond. Be open enough. Remember, since especially bonds take time, I'm a advocate, a believer that when you're building this bond, you be open enough. If your memory, if your story, or whatever you're trying to connect with them on, gives you any type of emotion. Let's say you're telling a story about your ex-boyfriend, and you start to feel bad about it. You start to want to cry about it. Okay, don't tell him something that you haven't gotten over with yet. It's all about timing. And the reason I say that, because if you do it too soon, you put all of your cards on the table too soon, you can scare a man away. Men can't get scared of you having too much baggage too soon. It's too soon, too much. Remember that. That's the reason why I tell you not to give your blueprint away. Your blueprint is you. Your blueprint is you. Your blueprint is the things that makes you. Your memories, your situations, your things, what you like, what you dislike, that is your blueprint. Give it sparingly. Make sure every woman has an intuition, a gut feeling of when to give some pieces of her blueprint away. Remember, if you give everything away too soon, not only can you scare them away, but it is boring when you know everything about a person. So make sure you hold on to a little bit, especially in the beginning when you're building. Let's say in the very beginning, you're building this bond. Do not give the piece of you that is emotional yet. For real. Give the piece of you that you've already healed from. If it's a story about your ex-boyfriend and how he mistreated you and you've healed from it, then tell him. Connect, you can connect with him on it. But don't give it to him unless you've already healed from it. Make sure you're open enough. Open enough so he'll feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to speak and give his information, give his insecurity, give his situation, or give his experiences that have happened. That's the only way he's going to be wanting to be open anyway, unless you have to open the door, especially when we're talking about masculine men. Masculine men are not as connected with their emotions as women are. So you need to open the door to that, but make sure you're careful in how you open that door. Don't lay all your cards on the table. Do not give your entire blueprint away so that until you'll know when it's time. Let me explain to you. You'll know when it's time to open that door. You'll know when it's time to let him know about that boyfriend that really hurt you. You will know when it's time to let him know about, oh, my mother called me names or something. You'll know. Use your intuition when you're in these situations. Stop going willy-nilly. If it doesn't resonate, you don't feel that you should say anything, don't say anything. Don't sit here and go against your own programming. Don't go against your own intuition. When women go against their own intuition, that's when a disaster happens. Okay. My guy friend said the same thing. He gets spoiled women when the mystery is gone. Yes, and I don't want to get too much into the mysterious juju because I have a stream coming up this week. I think that's tomorrow. I'm going to talk about how you keep your mysterious juju, your mystery, even as a single woman and a married woman. I'm going to tell you how to do that. But men do get bored when everything is on the table. A lot of time men look at you, if you don't tell them everything, you're predictable. He knows what you're going to do. He knows how you're going to react. He knows how far he can take. Really, men get to know this information because they want to know how far they can take you. They can take you a long distance if you don't tell them everything. You don't tell them what your boyfriend did. All that he can do is line it up. Be like, okay, her boyfriend did, she allowed it. All I got, I can do that too. This is the reason why I say be careful with the blueprint, but be open enough. Be open enough to be vulnerable, to open up the door and connect with your emotions, but choose what information is given. Like I said, choose the information that is not harmful, doesn't cause you an emotional reaction to give to him so he can open up. If you're over that someone called you a nappy headed, whatever, or whatever, you're over someone name calling you, say it. Then that's okay because you're already over that. You've healed from it. Don't sit here and say it. You haven't healed from it. That is the worst mistake women do because what they do, they tell it with their emotional, their feminine emotional aspect of themselves. And he's like, okay, that's a trigger. See, you taught him your trigger. You taught him your insecurity. So he can start pulling on it if he needs to. And you don't even know this man from a can of paint. So why would you give that information to him? Now we're talking about beginning bonds. As we go along, and time is the cue. Time is the way that time is your barometer that you're going to set your standard by. Time of him giving into your basic needs is what you're going to set your barometer by if you have a bond with this man. And you're going to test it too. Remember, I'm big on testing. How your testing look like? Your testing is no more than if something happens, he shows up. It could be emotional. Something happened, he shows up. Flat tire, he shows up. Someone breaks into my house, he shows up. That's how the testing can be. And that's how you know you have a bond with him if he shows up. Not because he want to get in your pants, not because he want to impress you. Those are different things. We're looking for actually testing the time and him showing up when needed. That is what we're looking for. So build your bond. And remember, like I said, there are stages. And if you're interested in more bond work, go to YouTube. I've been talking about bonds since the beginning of my page. I even have a course where I talk about in depth on how to set the bond up. for your man, and then how to test it also in the Make Him Earn You course. So that information is there. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to get ready to go. All right, I'm trying to give it some time, because every time what happens is that when I sit here and say, hey, I'm getting ready to go, I always see a question when I get ready to log out. And I want to make sure I answer them in the questions. But what I'm trying to do is try to just stay more on topic and more focused so people understand. Because what I am getting the consensus back and the feedback back is that I am going all over the board, because I allow questions for every aspect of my platform, which is, I feel like it's great. But then I also realize I have to make sure I make the point first before I start opening up the door to other questions, to other things. I'm talking about other things. So if we don't have any other questions, I am getting ready to go. That's my last call. And then hopefully you all have a wonderful day. And join me tomorrow for Mysterious Juju. We're going to talk about how to keep that mystery. How do you keep a mystery even as a married woman? How do you keep a mystery as a my most hated title, a girlfriend? How do you keep mystery when you're single? Because what happens is men do get bored. And if you put everything on the table, he's going to get bored. We don't want him to get bored. I want there to be a certain amount of mystery surrounding you. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you for hitting that button. Thank you for spending time with me. I will catch you on tomorrow's live. I'll see you tomorrow. Y'all have a good one.